Do you ever think maybe Judas got a bum rap? Yeah, I know, he betrayed Jesus. He betrayed all of us. But he wasn't the only one. Rocky, the one you call Peter, Rocky was there on the patio in the courtyard where Jesus was being held prisoner. And when people said, "You were with them, you know him," he said, "I don't know him. I never met the man." Jesus heard him. The look on Jesus' face when he heard Rocky say that broke my heart. And Jesus had told us it was going to happen. He said, "All of you will desert me. All of you will desert me." And we did. All of us. I think it's hard to blame us. These were scary times. They'd been trying to arrest Jesus for weeks. And now they were talking about executing him, not just locking him up, but killing him. So, yes, we were scared. We were terrified. It had not been that long since Herod had presented the severed head of John the Baptist to his stepdaughter at a banquet. So who knew what they would do? Who knew which one of us would be next? We women, it's possible we were less afraid than the men, maybe. But in many ways, we were actually more vulnerable. Men never really saw us as people. We were daughters, we were wives, we were sex partners, but we were never fully human. They might execute the men, but what they would do to us women would be far worse. Look what history did to me. The male historians have decided I was a fallen woman, and worse. So, it's hard when history misrepresents you. I understand that. And so I have a lot of empathy for Judas, you know. Judas wasn't a bad person. He wasn't. Oh, I know. Your history doesn't seem to be able to mention him without identifying him as the one who betrayed Jesus. But we all betrayed Jesus. So maybe the people who started that history had a guilty conscience, because when Jesus needed us most, we all ran and hid. I sometimes wonder, would it have been different if we had stayed together? Would it have been different if our group had come together to Pilate or Herod and defended Jesus? Could we have made a difference? I don't know. You know, Judas really was one of us. He traveled with us. He shared the good times. He shared the hardships. He was loyal. In fact, he was the one who was entrusted with the purse, with all of our resources. Yeah, so I understand that there was a story that he had been stealing for the purse. I have to tell you, in that group, we were small enough and close enough so that if there had been money missing, we would have known, and Judas would not have had the purse for much longer. It's really easy to make those accusations once a person's gone and can't defend themselves. Not fair, but it's easy. So if Judas was the good guy that I knew, that I spent those years with, then why did he betray Jesus? Why did he take that money? We'll never know for sure. We never came up with an answer. But I think Judas felt betrayed. I think Judas felt deeply betrayed. You know, before he became part of our group, Judas had been active in the resistance movement. Yeah, there was a resistance movement. We hated Rome. We hated the oppression. We hated the taxes. Yes, we got to keep our houses and go on with our lives, and we got to worship in the temple. Well, the men got to do those things anyway. But the only people who did well under the Roman oppression, the Roman rule, were the people who exercised power on behalf of the Romans. The rest of us struggled between the temple tax and the tax to Rome. We were barely surviving. Why do you think there were so many beggars? Because the only people who could have helped the beggars were those self-righteous men who were working for Rome, the priests, the elders in the temple. And they weren't going to give to beggars. So we understood why Judas had been part of the resistance. Some of us, maybe all of us, sympathized with him. I always thought he joined our group because, along with many of us, he thought that Jesus was the one, the Messiah, the one that the prophets had predicted, the one that we were all waiting for. Because, yes, we were excited about the vision, the idea that a descendant of David would come and take his throne again and restore the kingdom that David and Solomon had put together, and we would have back our power, not just over ourselves, but over the land around us. Yeah, it was a vision. We even used the word Messiah. We did. Sometimes Jesus seemed to agree with that. And sometimes he would say, no, don't say anything, don't tell anybody. We were never sure whether he thought he was the Messiah or not. We never knew. I understood Judas' frustration. So it had been 3 years, for 3 years. And Jesus kept wandering the dusty roads and describing the freedom from oppression and sharing a vision for how it could be a life of blessing and abundance. He even told us the kingdom was at hand. This kingdom that we were all waiting for, the Davidic kingdom, he said the kingdom is nearby. The kingdom is at hand. So, yeah, we got excited. It stirred things up. The problem was that he kept saying these things, but he never did anything. He never did anything. Oh, yeah, he fed some people, he healed some people, 1 or 2 people he brought back from the dead. But he didn't raise an army. He didn't gather people together and strategize. He didn't put out a call for the resistance to organize an insurrection. He even told us to pay the taxes to Rome. Well, it's not real clear what he said that day, but it sure sounded like he might have been telling us that we had to pay the taxes to Rome. So maybe Judas thought that Jesus was a danger to the resistance movement. After all, he had been stirring things up without a strategic plan. And so that would be dangerous, because if he stirred things up enough so that there was some sort of spontaneous uprising, some uncoordinated rebellion, it was sure to fail. It would be a spectacular failure. And we would suffer, because Rome did not tolerate insurrections. Rome expected the local rulers to keep control. We were expected to stay docile and compliant. That's why those who dealt in power treated us the way they did. And I sometimes think the last straw for Judas was when Jesus allowed his feet to be anointed with that expensive oil. That oil, it smelled so good. I've never smelled anything so rich. So wonderful. And Judas was not the only one there who was angry, who said, why are you wasting this? That money that bought that oil, that could have been spent to feed people. It could have been spent to help people. It could have been spent to support the resistance. There were way better things we could have done with that oil. So maybe that was the last straw. And maybe Judas saw an opportunity to accomplish two things. To get Jesus locked up so he would quit stirring things up and things could calm down. And also to get some money for the organized resistance, for a plan. When it became clear that they had no intention of just putting Jesus in jail until things calmed down, when it became clear that the plan was to execute Jesus, when it became clear that the crowds had turned against Jesus, when Judas realized that he, Judas, had been betrayed again, Judas killed himself. History says Judas was a traitor because he betrayed Jesus. I think Judas himself was betrayed.